So I think the only thing that was messy about this one is this. I think the rest of it is all good, isn't it?
I think it does. I think there's something weird.
Yeah, I just crossed it out. That was one thing that was bad. I think the rest was good.
Let's go right in. All right, let me do that.
Guys, screens down.
Sweet. Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's good to be back with you. And this is a week where Shabbat could not come quick enough. We hope tonight to be able to share some moments of joy, some songs of peace, some words of inspiration to try and help us heal and feel strong and safe and reconnected after a week that has been so challenging for our country and for so many of us. So we start tonight with words that we've sung many times before, but somehow they feel like they resonate even more tonight than ever before. We sing the words, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. God, help us build a world of kindness, a world of goodness and love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yadadai. We know that you are each watching from your homes, and so we invite you to join us in the different Shabbat blessings that we traditionally do from our Shabbat tables, lighting our candles, drinking our wine, eating our challah. And so tonight we'll invite Jonah and Molly, if you will, come and help us with these blessings. And so we light our candles first, giving us just a little break from the week that was and the week that we are taking a little break until we start anew. So we bring in the Shabbat spirits, taking a moment to separate between the week and between Shabbats. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. And then we'll take our Kiddush cups. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen.
L'chaim. Shabbat shalom.
And then their beautiful challah from Mora Diane. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And then last week in our parsha, we learned where the blessing, where the way we bless our children comes from. We are taught it in last week's Torah portion when Jacob is able to bless his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and that is the way that we bless our sons. So, Rabbi Michael.
Simcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'chi Manasseh. May God make you strong, mighty, learned, tolerant, and kind, like Ephraim and Manasseh.
And we bless our daughters that they should be like the matriarchs of the Jewish people. Yisimech Elohim kasara Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May God make you like Sarah and Rebecca, Rachel and Leah. And then we take an opportunity to all bless each other. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Amen.
May God bless you and keep you. Amen.
May God's light shine upon you through every darkness that you walk through. Amen.
May God be lifted over you, and may you always be granted with peace. Wholeness and peace. You're right, I changed it up tonight. Look at me. Shalom means both of those things. You can take the whole thing if you want to. Sure. This is a time more than any that what we need in our lives is shalom. And Jonah was right. I usually do say wholeness and peace because the truth is that's really what shalom, what shlemut means. It's not just peace. It's the idea that we are whole, that we have everything that we need. When we say shalom aleichem, we are wishing that that angels come to us in peace, that we can greet them with a wholeness of ourselves, with a wholeness of spirit, that they will come to us and bring us that extra peace that we need so badly at this time. Shalom aleichem, malachei hasharet, malachei elyon. melech malachei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we invite you now to join us in our call to worship. We call each other now to blessing. We call each other to find those blessings in our lives and in each other's. We say the words of the Baruch Hu. Each week we sing these songs, and over these months we've tried to do so many favorites. This next one is a favorite, and it's maybe not the traditional one, but this is Debbie Friedman's Shema, and so we think of it in particular tonight because this is the 10th yahrzeit for Debbie Friedman, which is amazing that she has been gone for 10 years, but we know that the legacy she left our community and the world is so much more than just music, that she really inspired generations of Jews. And so we sing the words of her Shema. We hope you'll join us. Shema Yisrael Continue now with the words of the V'ahavta, which, if you are following along in your Siddur, can be found on page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele Asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'aderech u'shakpecha uvkumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'ktavtam Al mizuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kidoshim leelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem leelohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. We end the words of the V'ahavta, always adding on those last lines. Adonai Elohechem emet. It reminds us that God is true, emet, that God is real, even sometimes when God is hard to find. When we are missing God's presence, when we are wondering where God is, we remember that no matter what, God is somewhere above us. God is somewhere, we hope, watching over us. And so when we sing Hashkivenu, we ask God, wherever God may be, to find a way to protect us, to keep us in a place of peace for us, for our country, for everyone we love. We ask God to spread that shelter of peace over us now, over us in the future, over us forever. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Amen. Tonight we felt that we needed maybe a few extra prayers for peace in here. So with Hashkivenu, we ask God to spread a sukkah of peace over us. With Shalom Rav, we ask God to spread a shelter of peace over Israel and over all the world. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. Ki ata melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, b'choli tovachasha b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim la'olam. Tonight we offer our prayer for healing. In your prayer book, it can be found on page 253. But these are Debbie's words. These are the words that Debbie Friedman wrote for us. Even though there is a traditional prayer for healing in Judaism, yet somehow the words that she wrote and the melody she wrote, it's what speaks to us. It's what makes us feel like somehow when we pray for healing, and these are the words that will work. And we pray they will. We are thinking in particular tonight of Arlene Alper. We're thinking of Liza and Max. We're thinking of Myrna, of Cheryl Brickman and Danny Brickman, of Gwen Finch. We're thinking of Charles Beach and Jerry Krause, of Meredith Berkowitz, of Tyler Testa. We're thinking of all of those who are hurting in our country and in our world right now. We sing for them this song, hope that healing comes their way. Bless those in need of healing with refuah, Shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Oh, say shalom, bimroma. Oh, yeah, say shalom, aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Oh, yeah, say shalom aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Still be Friedman too. So earlier this week, on Wednesday, our friend Erin sent us a text message, and she said, "You guys, are you watching the news?" And we, of course, turned on the news and saw what the world was seeing about what was happening in our nation's capital. And for the rest of the day, we watched the news and we listened to it on the radio and we doom scrolled through Facebook until the wee hours of the evening. And finally I said, enough, I have to find something that brings me some sort of comfort or wisdom or peace in these terrifying times. And so I did what I often try to do, which is turn to the words of our Torah to see if there is some sort of wisdom there, not just wisdom that can be found in its pages, because of course you can always find some sort of wisdom, but I wanted to look at this week's Parsha and see if maybe there was some sort of synchronicity in the words there and what is happening in our country this week. So I'll share with you what I found. You see, last week in the Torah, you may remember, it was the very end of the book of Genesis, and we knew that a new chapter was going to begin, and things felt really great. The end of Genesis, everyone has been reunited, and we know that no one is going hungry, and there is peace, and the Israelites are on top, and everything seems to be really good, and we are excited about what comes next. And then the next line in the Torah, when we begin the book of Exodus, all of a sudden, in just one line, everything changes. Just in a moment, just in a line, everything is turned upside down. But of course, we know that in the Torah, as in our own country, nothing really happens that quickly, does it? Nothing turns over in just a moment. There is always something, perhaps days or weeks or years or decades, that have led to this huge change that can feel so momentous and so instantaneous. And so the rabbis of our tradition, when they were looking at what possibly could have happened from the end of Genesis, when things look so awesome, to the beginning of Exodus, when suddenly all of the Israelites are slaves and are suffering, the rabbis said, well, there must be some reasons for this. There must be reasons that we could go from things being so great to suddenly things being so upside down and terrifying. And I'll share with you really sort of three classic teachings about what the rabbis thought was happening here. They said maybe the reason that things changed the way they did, maybe it's God. Maybe the answer is theological. Then maybe what happens between the end of Genesis, when things are looking so good, and the beginning of Exodus, when things look not so good, is that God has been engaged in this act that in Hebrew we call hester panim. It means that God is hiding God's face from the people. It's a way of saying that no, God didn't leave us. God is there all along, but somehow God is hidden. And we know that when God is hidden, things go bad. That when we don't have that access to God's face and to God's presence and to God's wisdom, that things can go awry and that people can go awry. It's a theological explanation that is given often for whenever bad things happen in the world. Sometimes it's even used to explain things like the Holocaust, to say that what really happened was, well, it's because God was hiding God's face. I should share that I don't particularly like that theological explanation. I don't have much interest in a God who sometimes plays hide and seek with us, but I understand that sometimes it helps to believe that maybe it's just because of God and not because of us. So that's one explanation they give. Another explanation is to say that really what happens, well, it's just political. That sometimes you get a good Pharaoh and sometimes you get a bad Pharaoh. You know, the Pharaoh that we had in Genesis, in the Joseph story, generally he's a pretty good guy. You know, Andrew Lloyd Webber makes him like the Elvis of pharaohs, right? It's a terrible song in the musical, but still, the idea is that Pharaoh who liked Joseph, that he was a pretty decent guy, but the Pharaoh of Exodus, the Pharaoh who the Israelites dealt with when they became slaves, the Pharaoh in whose home Moses lives, that was not a good Pharaoh. And the teaching is to say that sometimes you're going to get good leaders and sometimes you're going to get bad leaders. But then no matter what, the Jewish people, we have always believed that we should respect the laws and the leadership of the land. And sometimes those leaders will be good and sometimes those will be bad. And there is some truth in that. There's not a lot of comfort in it, but there's some truth there. The last explanation, beyond the theological and the political, is the personal. Is to say that maybe what happened, the reason that the Israelites ended up being enslaved in the beginning of Exodus, maybe it was their fault. Maybe the people, they multiplied too quickly. They lost sight of who they were, and they stopped paying attention. And somehow they didn't even realize when they'd gotten there were so many of them that the text even says it's like they were swarming. There were too many of them. They caused too many problems. It was their fault, and that's why they became enslaved. Which feels a little bit like blaming the victim, but perhaps there is something to be said to say that the Israelites had lost their way. And I think that perhaps we can look at each of these three understandings of what happens between Genesis and Exodus, and we can use those same teachings to try and understand what happened to us and our country this week. Maybe it's theological. Maybe somehow God has turned away from us. Maybe this country, which for so long we have believed and we have said, God bless America, but maybe it was time for God to bless someone else. It's certainly possible. Perhaps we believed for too long that we had some sort of a special relationship with God, and now God is going to favor another nation. It is certainly possible, but it's a depressing idea, and I would rather not think. Just as I don't believe it theologically, I don't believe it about the Exodus, I don't believe it about the Holocaust, I do not believe in a God who hides God's favor or God's face from us. So maybe we could say that the answer is political. And yes, we know that we are going to have good leaders and we are going to have bad ones. And chances are, of the people who are watching services tonight, that we may even feel differently about who is a good one and who is a bad one. But still, the teaching is the same. Jewish tradition believes that whoever the leader is, though we do not believe they're divinely ordained, that if we are participating in a country, particularly one that is a democracy, that we should respect the leader who is in charge, that we should respect the will of the people and do what we can to uphold those laws. The last example that says that perhaps it's the fault of the people. You know, right now, I think it's so easy for all of us to point fingers, and to be clear, it is an okay time to point a little bit, but just the same, we need to make sure that we are not so busy pointing fingers at others that we don't look at ourselves and say, was there something that we could do as individuals, as a city, as a country, to make things better? And maybe it was this week, or maybe it was this year, or maybe it's been for the past 10 years. Were there things that we could have done to prevent Wednesday from happening? There may have been. But I will tell you that none of these three perspectives, none of them work for me. I don't think that looking at this problem theologically or politically or even personally in that way, it doesn't give me a sense of how to move forward and how to feel right now. So I will give you one last answer. The beginning of Exodus, it says that this new Pharaoh did not know Joseph. And that in and of itself, the fact that Pharaoh just didn't know who Joseph was and just didn't know, therefore, who the Israelites were, that could have been enough. That not knowing who another human being is, not seeing them as human, not trying to understand things from their perspective, that can be enough to change us from a place where we are experiencing success and freedom and joy to a place of slavery and pain. When we do not take the time to know each other, to try and see the humanity in others, this can happen. Our tradition says, "B'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihiyot ish." In a place where people are not acting like humans, you still have to be a person. You still have to recognize others and the humanity in them. And when I look at what happened in our nation's capital on Wednesday, I see such an absence of humanity. I see people who were not thinking about other human beings, were not thinking about laws, were not thinking about how to protect their families or how to protect their city, but who were just acting like a mob out of anger. That is not acting like an ish, like a human being. And this is what we need in these times, to be able, each of us, and I'm talking now not just about the people in the Capitol, but every single one of us, to make sure that we can recognize and start seeing the humanity in each other. I will tell you, though, that as disturbed as I was on Wednesday, by the time we reached the middle of the night on Wednesday, I started feeling a little bit better, because I started seeing and hearing those sparks of humanity. And as the hours and days have passed since then, we have seen it more and more. We have seen people who for so long seemed to not recognize others as human and other, to be able to say, wait, perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps I can help. Perhaps I can change. We've seen people taking responsibility for the harm that they have wrought. And this, to me, gives me such incredible hope that for as terrifying as Wednesday was, maybe, just maybe, that's what it took for us to be able to find that spark of humanity in each other yet again. You know, every week since the pandemic has begun, Rabbi Michael and I, we've picked some sort of song to be able to close services with. I'm not going to do the song now. We do have a good one for you, but all week I have found myself thinking not of a whole song, but of a line, and it's from the Who's Tommy, and it seemed to fit so well here. It says, I got a feeling 21 is gonna be a good year, especially if you and me see it in together. I got a feeling 21 is gonna be a good year, especially if you and me see it in together. I had no reason to be over-optimistic, but somehow when you smile, I can brave bad weather. Perhaps we have no reason to be over-optimistic. And I know we spent all last year saying to each other, we're all in this together, and maybe we didn't quite make it, but 21, this is going to be our year. This is going to be the year when we really find out how to all be in it together. May we take this pivotal moment in our nation's history and remember how to be in it together. May we remember how to see the humanity in each other. May we truly learn to know each other so that we can change the next chapter of our story. And so now we turn in a moment of sadness to acknowledge those who we've lost this week. We recall with love the names of those taken from us in recent days, and our hearts go out to their families in sympathy as we recall their names. Miriam Goodman, Jack Oglander, Alan Spetner, Charles Wiggins. We now recall the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the Wall of Honor for perpetual memorial. Joseph Arndt, Ilse Bamberger, Sigmund Barak, Libby Galst-Bass, Leon Bodenheimer, Harry Brandt, Jerry Chod, Ann Cooper, Hermann Deutsch, Dr. Max Fendler, Irma Frankenstein, Debbie Friedman, Samuel Friedman, Philip Fuchs, Rose Cutter Gelber, Louis Glazer, Sarah Esther Goldberg, Boris Goldenhirsch, Zelda Greenberg, Selma Hollander, Ben Kessler, Herman Kohlenbrenner, Doris Hoffman-Cohn, Bernice Kohner, Alex Landau, Julius Levy, Dorothy Learmark, Kurt Lindner, Sarah Lissner, Perry L. Melman, William Molaski, Harold Machen, Faye Beth Bear O'Byrne, Boris Orris, Amelia Paul, Stella Diamond Pearls, Bess Robinson, Esther Hellerstein Rothenberg, Arthur Rufa, Jay Rovak, Albert Safer, Benjamin Samuels, Julius Schmuckler, Merle Cohn Sievers, Hortense Horty Simon, Jacob Simon, Blanche Steele, Elizabeth Stone, N. Robert Wagason, Minnie Weinstein, Gustav Shore-Willer, and Dr. Gary Zuckerman. So with these names and the names that are our hearts, we join together in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. If you're following along in the Siddur, it's on page 598.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divarach hiroteh v'amlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei dekudesha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, ta'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. So, our closing song that we thought would be fitting. We've done a lot of Simon and Garfunkel in these weeks we've been here together, and Simon and Garfunkel sing a lot of songs about America, but American Tapestry.
but this one is just called America. Together, I've got some real estate here in my bed, so I bought a pack of cigarettes and Mrs. Wagner's pies and walked off to look for America. Kathy, I said as we boarded a Greyhound to Pittsburgh, raincoats. We smoked the last one an hour ago. So I looked at the scenery. She read her magazine, and the moon rose over an open field. Kathy, I'm lost, I said, though I knew she was sleeping. I'm empty and aching, and I don't know why. Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, they've all come to look for America. They've all come to look for America. They've all come to look for America. Shabbat Shalom.